show's 50 years old now. I've been in charge of the music department for a year, and it just felt like it was ready for some modernisation. It's very important with the Rocky Horror Show that we remain true to its roots, but equally there are certain audience expectations which have changed over the past 50 years obviously, and it felt like the right time to update some sounds, update some harmonies in the company, and slightly modernise the Rocky Horror Show, and that's what we've been doing with this. And I think we discussed earlier the fact that we now have multiple keyboard sounds, multiple piano sounds. That's really important. A rock and roll piano shouldn't sound like a honky tonk piano. A Steinway concert grand with reverb on it shouldn't sound like an upright piano, and we've now got all those little things. They're details which the audience won't necessarily notice, but they'll know something's better.
We've just moved over to using the brand new KORG Nautilus, and I think what really excited us about it is we've been using for a long time on this show, because it was set up in such a way quite a long time ago now, of using two separate keyboards to get two completely different types of sounds. And this new Nautilus has so many inbuilt sounds, but also such a fantastic software inside to be able to program in it for us to move from patch to patch throughout the songs with as much ease as possible, so we can still not have to worry about the technology of the keyboard. We can just move to the next sound. But it's not like the old school keyboards that would have a piano sound, a string sound, a woodwind sound, a percussion sound. It's got hundreds of every single one. And I remember Greg, when I first came onto this production, discussing that it would have been lovely to have multiple different piano sounds for this show. And that's sort of where the conversation started, because we always had just a generic piano sound. Whereas as soon as we started looking and researching into this KORG Nautilus and hearing the amount of different pianos there were, I think something really sparked an excitement in what we could do, and it just developed from that point of how many sounds we could bring to this show that we've never heard it in that way before, but still keeps it as close to the original with just a bit more sparkle on top of it.
I think from my point of view, because I'm not a technological person at all, I understand notes but not nodes, if you like. It's incredibly easy to operate. We often have to do things on the fly, especially when we're setting up a new production. So you can get into the bank that's required or the page that's required. It's all on the screen, you can see it. It's even in nice colours so that I can understand what I should and shouldn't be pressing at any point. The way that we can switch between patches is fantastic. We've got 16 in front of us at any time, and we can go up and down with a pedal. It's really user-friendly, which for somebody like me, who's a bit of a dinosaur with technology, is very useful.
Greg's been part of this show a lot longer than I have, and it's such a privilege to come onto this show. But I'm the sort of MD that comes in, and I find it really exciting to see how something's been done and find a new colouring and a new life for it. But I think what's so brilliant about this show is it's got such a success from its roots that we have to keep so true to that. And I think because Greg's come onto it and we've had a slight freedom to be able to play around with it, we've found some new colours that are so exciting, even compared to when I came onto it a year ago. But it's lifted it in a way, like Greg said, that everyone knows something's different and it's brilliant, but they don't quite know how. And I think it's really exciting when we speak to people about what we've done, that they think that's so clever these days, because people don't think about having a different piano sound on a show, and it's so easy to have done it. And we even notice the difference as pianists. I think you hit the piano and it responds in a way that piano would, which I find absolutely remarkable. You play a rock and roll piano and it feels like you're smashing a rock and roll piano, and you get to a pop piano, it's got such brightness to it, it cuts through in a way that you've never heard on this show. And it's just changed for me the way I play this show ever so slightly as well, because my fingers are reacting to it in a different way that it's never done before. And I think that, even on its own, just brings it to life in a different way. It's got so many musicians and so many actors that come back to this show that I think if we weren't to find new things and little things that bring out a difference to it, it doesn't keep it as exciting and as successful as it's been. And it just lifts it every single time, but still keeping it to its roots, and the version that brings everyone back on a nightly basis every single day.
I think the convenience is probably the most important factor, and so far we've only discussed the fact that Charlie and I play this show, but that's not the end of it. The truth is I'm not often on the show, and if Charlie's poorly, we have to get somebody else in to come and basically effectively sight read the show. And if you've got a complicated setup where somebody who's really only wants to read the music is actually reading, you turn a page and it says, right, press up, down 4 times, then, you know, the one that looks like a toaster, press that 3 times and all that kind of stuff. It's a complete nightmare. This is such a straightforward layout. Nobody would need to worry about the technology, which is fantastic.
I think what's been great for this as well is it's very easy to get onto it, but at the end of the day for us as well, you know, technology can go wrong, and even if you want to use it somewhere else, it's quite difficult to get some setups to move to another keyboard or to another show. It's set up so brilliantly, this keyboard, that it means that we can literally take our programming from it and put it onto another Nautilus straight away. So if the show does move to another production or go somewhere else, or something could happen, we can always jump it onto another one as just as easy as you can play it and conduct it as well. From my experience, much better sounds that are coming with other aspects like the velocity of the keys and the reaction of the keys that are coming on one device, which I think will change shows by just putting on a keyboard like this. I think for this show, like I just mentioned, we play it differently because of the reaction we get from the keyboard, and I've never actually experienced that as a musician before from an instrument, because I think, you know, I trained as a pianist on a proper piano, but I feel like I never play a proper piano anymore. And this is the closest I've got to it in a long time, because it makes you play it completely differently to every song, to every moment.
I think we should also consider it's not just our department which benefits from this. The fact that the new keyboards are lighter, they're easier to manage, it makes the sound get in quicker, it makes the crews get in on and off the trucks easier, it means there's more space on the bandstand. Everything that goes with it, it's not just a selfish thing, it's for everyone's benefit that this show has been modernised with these fantastic instruments.
Yeah.
I think the best thing about working on this show now is that it's different every night, but we've got the safety net of the keyboards, knowing that whatever we do with them is going to support us, which really does take a huge weight off. It sounds like a silly thing to say, and it sounds like something that you would expect, but as soon as you take that away, it's amazing how frightening it becomes. I think the challenges are we're in a new venue every week. It sounds different every week. We have a very short get-in time. We travel sometimes thousands of miles on a Sunday in order to start again the next Monday, and frankly I'm far too old for it. So thank you. So yeah, I think that's the greatest challenge, apart from working with Charlie, obviously.
Brilliant. The best thing about this show is the people. I mean, like we said about everything from the audience to who's on stage, it just brings the best people, and I think it brings the best out of people as musicians and as humans on that stage, and I think on a nightly basis that's brilliant. For me, playing with this bunch of musicians who are such an eclectic bunch of musicians of age and experience is such a blessing. And now to be adding such a brilliant keyboard that's actually, for me, like I said about how it reacts to the way I play it, making me a better pianist, and to be able to listen again and play a show as a proper pianist, not as an MD. We just happen to be together and we just lead that together. It was a big challenge for me on this show, and it took me a while to adjust to this style of music and this style of show. But actually now with this keyboard and this team, it makes it not a challenge anymore. I think that the biggest challenge of this show is keeping it fresh. And I think keeping it fresh with respect to what it is, but also keeping it alive, is such a balance to get right. And I think we've got it right for now, but I think the excitement is, what do we do in a year's time from now? What do we do in 10 years from now? And we've got to keep thinking about that, but we've got to always remember its roots and what made it famous and what made it so successful.
The Rocky Horror Show was, I think it was probably 13 years ago. I don't particularly come from a musical theatre background. I come from a playing background and a gigging background. And I was sent to Germany. I was doing the World Tour of Chess at the time, and we had 6 weeks off, and I was sent to Germany and said, could you learn the Rocky Horror Show to cover an MD who was away setting up another show? And that was actually the first time I saw it. And I remember sitting in rehearsals thinking, what on earth have I walked into here? It's just complete mayhem, you know, complete carnage. And after about 2 days, I thought, well, this is now completely normal. Something has happened to me that I was not prepared for. And yeah, that was my first experience of it, really. I had worked with Richard O'Brien previously, but with him as an actor in a completely unrelated project. So yeah, the first time of Rocky Horror was sort of in at the deep end.
I was quite late to it. I've always known of Rocky Horror and I've always known of its success, but I actually never got round to ever seeing it until Greg got in touch with me and asked me if I wanted to get involved in it. And actually, like we said about knowing its success and its excitement, I was just quite excited to come and see it. And me and my partner sat down to watch it, and he didn't speak to me for an hour because we just didn't have a clue what was going on, and I couldn't quite believe what I was seeing. And I still can't get over that feeling. We were sat right in the centre of Southampton Mayflower on a Friday night, and it was completely packed out, and everyone was just shouting behind us, and my natural instincts to just go, you need to shut up, there's a show on, right? I just had no idea what was going on. And then when it came to conducting it for the first time, I still had no idea what was going on. It took so long to get used to it, but I think back to that now, and it was such a beautiful thing to witness, and I will never forget that. And I think if we've got people that come to it every single day and they feel that way, that's an amazing experience if that's been happening every day for 50 years.
So this, unlike any other show, is a gig. That's what it feels like. You're getting up there with your mates, and you're doing a gig, you know. And this has always been a show I felt about having 5 soloists. We've got an absolutely stunning band here, who are all very accomplished soloists in their own right. And to get those 5 people together and just basically have a blast. A lot of our music is just chord sheets.
Yeah.
And in fact, when Richard Hartley, who did the original orchestrations, used to go out to new productions, he would say to musicians, you know what to play. You know, rather than if you're doing some very detailed Sondheim or something like that. There are other shows like it. Hair's very like it, I think, because it's the same sort of vibe. But yeah, it's pretty unique, really.
I think it keeps it alive as well. You know, it was very, very eye-opening for me that I've been conducting bands for so many years to come into this and suddenly overwork it. And our fantastic drummer Al Cox just go to me, you're part of the band now. It's much cooler than that. And actually just to sit back and relax into it and go, actually, I'm just playing a bit of rock and roll with my mates. And that's exactly what it is. And I think that's the best way to describe the show. You're just playing a bit of rock and roll with your mates, and it becomes a gig, and we celebrate every single person's solo. And there's a point of the show in every song where it becomes, oh, this is Al's section, this is the sax section, this is the keys section, and it's something different every night, and it keeps it alive for us and the audience that come to it 8 times a week.
Yeah.
Some audience come to it more than we do.
Yeah.
4 changes within seconds makes such a difference to every single number in energy.